Right now, the fallout continues from Mitt's Moocher video. Should he embrace what came out on the tapes, or should he do everything he can to try and contain the political damage and fallout? Our political panel pieced together what Romney's got to do with his remaining 48 days. And next, a Jersey comeback? Well, how about a Jersey downgrade? Things not looking so rosy now for the Garden State as the S&P and other credit rating agencies downgrading the state's economic outlook now to negative. Is Christie gonna have to crawl back to voters with tail between legs? Don't hold your breath on it. We'll talk about that at length. And we'll talk also about guns in America. A new poll is out showing that there's a lot more support for regulation than you might instantly believe. The pollster, he'll take us behind the numbers. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. As you can see, a lot to cover this next 60 minutes. But thank you for joining us this Wednesday evening, September 19th. We begin once again, as we did last night, with Mitt Romney's closed-door comments of him essentially writing off about half the electorate. Now, you no doubt have heard most, if not all, of what Romney said to those high-end donors that has got everybody talking. If not, here again is a quick clip.
Of the people who will vote for the president no matter what. All right, there are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it. But it's an entitlement, and government should give it to them. And they will vote for this president no matter what.
Now that, of course, Mr. Romney a few months ago thinking he was off the record. Well, today, both Romney and President Obama, they're still talking, and this time on the record. That is, Romney tries to move on, and the president tries to stop him from doing just that.
The question of this campaign is not who cares about the poor and the middle class. I do, he does. The question is who can help the poor and the middle class. I can, he can't. He's proven it in 4 years.
There are not a lot of people out there who think they're victims. There are not a lot of people who think that they're entitled to something.
We were, of course, talking about a campaign and how he's going to get close to half the vote. I'm going to get half the vote, approximately, I hope.
One of the things I've learned as president is you represent the entire country. My expectation is that if you want to be president, you got to work for everybody, not just for some.
All right. We're going to get into the politics, and certainly there's a lot of it given the political calendar, both what it means and where, if anywhere, Romney will go from here with the remaining time left before we all vote in November. But before we go to the politics, the question we all ought to be asking is tonight here, who's he talking about when he says the 47%? Well, Romney obviously not talking with great affection about him, and he promises that they're not his consideration if elected, at least on that video. You hear government benefits, they may think instantly welfare queen or somebody who's gaming the system, not contributing anything, but just basically a drain on all of us that make up, I guess, the 53%. Problem is, it's not nearly that simple or nearly that true. It turns out Mitt Romney may have been talking about your neighbor, possibly somebody, your loved one, maybe even you, and you might not even know it. Now, Andrew, I know this is something dangerous and stuff like this, but let's talk policy before we talk politics. Who are the 47%?
Well, it's important to note, Rich, that there are no hard, fast rules here. It's not like everybody in the groups that I'm about to name qualifies for the group that Mitt Romney was referring to. He was referring to the 47% of all Americans who pay no federal income taxes. Many have a good reason for doing so. Others may have no other choice, like seniors. Many seniors have tax deductions that they get that knocks out their taxable income, or their pensions are simply too low for them to be taxed. Veterans, many of them are on disability benefits. Those disability benefits are not taxed and may not count against their income, leading them to pay no income tax. The disabled, if you've been injured on the job and you collect SSI, or you're disabled and you have a limited income, you might not rise to the level where your income is taxed. The working poor, if you're a single person who earns less than $9,750 a year, or a couple with 2 kids earning less than $26,400, you don't qualify for any federal taxes. You're in the 47%. Middle income families may be getting their tax liability reduced through child credits or mortgage deductions or marriage penalty relief. That income would not be taxed. Then you have investors. Many through earned income or through deductions wind up with no tax liability. And finally, students. Many students wind up with student loan deductions and don't have jobs that rise to a level where their income would be taxed, Rich. Any number of people in those different groups could be the ones not paying federal income taxes. They certainly pay other taxes, but they might have been among the people Mitt Romney was referring to.
And there's one other group, children. Children also are in that group here, especially when we're talking about kids that don't have much. All right, Andrew, thank you very much. Let's bring in the panel, and I want to bring in first Richard Brodsky, former New York assemblyman, senior fellow at Demos, professor at NYU. T.J. McCormack, conservative radio talk show host. Dominic Carter, who we see every night here, political journalist and author to boot. Okay, guys. Again, let's resist the temptation to get into politics, how this will move the needle one way or the other. And just from a policy front, when I heard this, and TJ, I'll start with you. I've heard a lot of conservatives say, oh, you know what, amen. Finally somebody says that. You got a bunch of people that are leeching off the system. Moochers, I think I heard here, are people who, are looking for the government for handouts that have no self-responsibility or respect. I'm not so sure, even though a lot of Republicans took him for task, that enough people still know that the 47% aren't all eating bonbons sitting at home with their feet up because they don't feel like getting a job.
Right. This was a train wreck. It was a massive, both feet in the mouth all the way up to his knees. And the problem being is that he combined everything. He made a massive salad out of what should have been a whole lot of little dishes. In terms of gathering everybody into this ridiculous 47%, amongst them are a whole bunch of people who have been preached to that they are victims. There are a whole lot of people out there that are going to vote for Obama, and he's lost them. And by the way, let us also realize, when he talks about it's not my job to worry about them, some such phrasing in that, he's talking about, I'm not going to get their vote. I'm not trying to get their vote. This campaign is not about getting their vote. Okay? The 47% number, I think he was combining the numbers that the president has in his column now.
TJ,
and then
I
he
hear
mixed
you.
it all
I
in.
hear you. But
understand?
Dominic, it fit into a narrative, and I don't think unfairly, that is, you know what? These people are doing just fine because we're all paying for all their basically substance here, so I'm not going to worry about them. Now, whether it was in a campaign context or not, most people instinctively said, he doesn't think we need anything, and he doesn't think that we really need any help. If anything, we need to help the top end here so maybe it'll trickle down to the bottom. That was the instinctive takeaway that I think I got from a lot of folks that think that they're in the 53.
Indeed. What happened, Richard? Mr. Romney simply was caught. He got caught. He was talking to people, and I don't know why he found the need to say that. They were going to give him thousands of dollars anyway, these donors. And so I do agree with your initial assessment. He was literally talking about a lot of working people, he being Mr. Romney, that might be his base.
And wealthy people who may not be actually,
I don't know about wealthy, because when he was asked that question, he defined what middle class is $250,000 a year.
That came a little bit later on in the season. But, Richard, Andrew wanted, God bless him, to get in a debate about what the role of government is, and it's just not enough time, given everything that's going on, to really appropriately get into it, okay? But that, at the end of it, is this, because there's a perception. And to me, the most interesting, we'll never know the answer, but how many people, in Mitt's definition of the 47%, don't realize they're in the 47%? And they don't realize they were insulted by that speech, that they were the moochers. I think if we said, time out, pal, you going to a VA? He's calling you a moocher. You got a Pell Grant? You're a moocher.
We call it moochers, call it the deserving poor or the undeserving poor. There's been a theme in the Republican Party when it was captured by the corporate right that says we can define government as a fundamentally unfair taking of money from the successful people and giving it to the unsuccessful people. Put aside the merits, even though Andrew's numbers are right spot on, and it's not true. It's a train wreck. It's both. Who said that? You said that?
That was me, sir.
Both feet in the mouth, up to the knees. So, you can either decide to dignify it by pointing out, well, it's just not true, or you can just let him roast and toast. He's a nice man, and he's a bright man, and he's successful, but he really is out of touch. And that, in the end, is what this is going to
do you
prove.
think a lot of people feel the same way that he does, and maybe they wouldn't have said that in an open mic here, but down deep they think that you know what, while I'm busting my you-know-what, I'm supporting 12 people who won't get off their you-know-what's here to get a job. I think there's this perception out there that there's that many welfare queens that are just getting a free ride in this country. Facts be damned. That's why I saw the Limbaughs and the rest of the world jump to his defense to say, don't back off of it, double down on it, Mitt. I'm with you 100%.
I agree he should double down on it, but I think he should double down on it because it's going to kill him.
I think there are a lot of people out there who are cheering what he said because, people pay taxes and nobody likes the taxes that they pay, and they try to figure out where that money's going. And the conservative media has formed a very convenient boogeyman that there's all these people who are just gaming the system.
Andrew, do you think that
but
college
nobody
students,
thinks that way. Nobody thinks that way. Everybody just thinks of the bad people.
We all know who the traditional boogeyman is. It's not being. We know who the traditional boogeyman is.
This is why this is an opportunity.
Dominic, 11 minutes to get to it.
That's right. The traditional boogeyman of what candidates are normally talking about is, you're not like those people. And we know what those people mean. The one that sit home and collect welfare and don't work.
But
that's what he was.
Social Security recipients.
Right.
And I'm
that's
just wondering if the seniors know. Wait a second. Is he calling me a moocher?
Right.
I'm not sure that
he put you in
resonates.
that same boat with the others.
That's why this is potentially an important moment for all of us around this table and every voter in America, because this should be a discussion. If these guys want to make it a referendum, make it a referendum. Talk about conservatism and liberalism, because while we have this tape, we have a tape from another time, and granted, but we know that, Mr. Brodsky, but we know he's always been a redistributor. This is an opportunity to discuss. I want to be a conservative and raise everybody.
There's nothing conservative about this attack on the poor and the middle class and veterans and old people.
It's a mistake. It's a
I tell you
poorly
what,
spoken
it's a
moment.
poorly spoken mistake.
It was a gaffe. He got caught.
Call it what
He got caught.
Just like Obama got caught talking about redistribution.
But it wasn't a mistake.
Look,
it was not a mistake.
We can muddy the waters.
The mistake was he told you what he actually thought.
It's a good
That's
chance
what the
to
mistake
move on.
was.
Second, what the five of us think, and Andrew, this obviously is getting not just reaction on the political landscape, but you got some very curious bedfellows that are criticizing Romney for what he said and what his worldview, or at least his view of America is.
Well, we do, and he's certainly getting a lot of criticism from the political world right now, whether it's conservatives, liberals, or the political media. From the New York Times and David Brooks, the conservative, on the op-ed column, Romney's comment is a country club fantasy, he wrote. It's what self-satisfied millionaires say to each other. It reinforces every negative view people have about Romney. You can go to the New York Times editorial board itself, class warfare being waged in the 2012 campaign, coming from Mr. Romney and not President Obama. Maureen Dowd, it turns out he's secretly cruel, a social Darwinist, just like his running mate. Margaret Carlson, who usually runs the middle of the road at Bloomberg, Romney's remarks are an insult to all those whose lives haven't been as smooth. And former Bush advisor Mark McKinnon, writing in the Daily Beast, this is a deeply cynical view of America, not to mention wrong, Rich.
Oh, look who's buttering McKinnon's bread these days, please. Let's take that with a grain of salt.
What about all the other Republicans that are criticizing?
I agree with most of them. I agree with Peggy Noonan. I agree with...
Her word was, and the campaign is incompetent.
It is. I've been saying for a year that he's the worst train wreck.
Well, that's a perfect way for us to segue to the next break. We're going to talk about the politics and the political fallout of this, and I want to remind you at home, everybody, we got inundated with your comments here, both on Facebook and Twitter. I want you to keep them coming. And this is what we're asking you tonight. Do you think 47% of Americans are moochers? Now, some of your reaction, as I said, already coming in. It's scrolling at the bottom of the screen. When we come back, we'll get into some more of that, and also what it means for the Romney campaign. He's got two choices tonight. Does he embrace and double down on his comments and that 47% remark, or does he do everything he can do to damage control and run away from it? Our panel will break that down after this.